Hello everyone, my name is Somariana and today I will be discussing how Kant's categorical imperative applies to the ethical issue of torture. We will explore each of the three formulations of this imperative and analyze their implications in this complex moral scenario. In this presentation, we have an overview, the theory of torture as stated, and the ethical implications of torture. And then we're going to conclude with the formulas of everything. In this presentation, we will first provide an overview of Kant's categorical imperative, where this ethical framework is based on duty and moral law, emphasizing that certain actions are inherently right or wrong, regardless of their consequences. We examine the three laws of Kant, the three formulas of Kant, which are the formula of universal law, the formula of humanity, and the formula of autonomy. The formula of universal law is the first formula where Kant states that we should act only according to that maxim that we can will to become a universal law. This means that before we take any action, we should consider whether it could be applied universally without contradiction. The second formula, the formula of humanity, which states that the second Kant's formula, which says that we must treat humanity in ourselves and in others, always as an end and never merely as a means, which highlights an intrinsic value of each individual and their dignity. The third, we have the formula of autonomy. The formula of autonomy that examines the formulation and emphasizes that we should act in a way that our will can regard itself as making universal law through the maxims. We're going to also to see the applications of each of the law, starting from the formula of universal law. But before that, let's state the torture. Torture is often justified in extreme situations such as national security threats or obtaining vital information. However, it raises profound moral questions about humanity rights and dignity. But then, what are the applications of these formulas? Let's apply this scenario of torture and to the maxim where it is permissible to torture individuals to extract information. We must ask ourselves, will we want a world where this is accepted? The answer is no. A world that permits torture will lead to widespread abuse and moral decay, making it clear that this maxim cannot be universalized. But I will say also that torture fails deeply these formulations, and it cannot be willed as a universal law from all the moral and the ethical rules of torture. But next, we are going to see the applications of the formula of humanity, where I think to reduce object and the dignity of the humanity, torture threats the victim merely and is a means to an end. But is violating the word as a human being, extracting information or punishing the human being to have information, which clearly depicts the nature of it. Because we know that torture is morally impermissible under the second formulation and is formally disregarded due to the dignity of the individual being tortured. Next, we are going to see the application of the categorical imperative, where I think the formula of autonomy, where I think in the context of torture, the formulation reveals that both the torturer and the victim is autonomy are compromised. The victim autonomy is violated when subjected to torture, while the torturer's moral agency is diminished by engaging in such an immoral act. So we see that in a two-phase, both the torturer and the tortured is faced with is being touched. So is being touched by the process of torture. And therefore, torture undermines the principle of autonomy and moral agency, rendering the ethical unacceptable and under these formulations as well. So I will summarize by saying that torture was like a topic that was supposed to take a clear depiction of the human nature, but mostly in the clears of the government. But we can usually talk about it ethically if we pronounce torture. What are the ethical implications of torture? When we analyze torture through Kant's imperative, categorical imperative, it becomes evident that the act is morally indefensible, accepting that torture not only harms individuals but also degrades the societal moral standards. I would take, for example, we see ourselves being afraid of the product. Yeah, I'm not going to. I've seen films, I've seen movies where people are afraid of the CIA or the FBI because of their way of doing, or because they think that the FBI or the CIA is doing this thing. So, since all our government institutions, we stand the work turned by being afraid of the government and more and more. So it's moral standard that is faced, and that does not only affect the people, but it affects how we depict the society in general. Okay. To summarize, we have explored Kant's reformulation of the categorical imperative that applies to the act of torture, and torture fails to meet the criteria of universality and violates human dignity and undermines autonomy, making it an unequivalent immoral action. To this, I have supported my slides with some references that will aid to the people that are interested in following the concept of the formulations of Kant, and to know more about torture, I'm here to answer each question.